Hi, it's Mark Murphy, and this is TravelTube.com. Today I have Scott Faust, and he is with Destinations 24/7 Travel Services. I think I got that right. Let me bring him to the stage. All right, there he is. Hey, how you doing, Scott?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
Good, good, good. So you were telling me on our pre-call that you had recently taken a group to Mexico for a destination wedding.
Yes.
And so I wanted to get your take on how they went about planning that, and then how they chose the resort that fit their budget and all of that. So why don't you kick it off with just a 30 seconds on your agency, how long you've been around, and
Sure.
go from there.
I've had the agency Destinations 24/7 for probably about 12, 13, 14 years now. I've been an agent for 34 years now. I worked as an outside contractor for a couple of the larger outside companies. And I just decided one day, hey, I'm going to get my own CLIA certificate and get my own E&O insurance for an agency and hit the ground running.
Gotcha. And so how many years have you had a full service agency?
Probably about 15.
Okay. And you also mentioned you started bringing on some independent contractors. What prompted that, and how's that working out?
One of the things I really like doing is training and mentoring. So it was a no-brainer for me. It was either that or start a travel school. So I really like what I'm doing now. This is really probably the funnest part of the job that I do now is bringing on people that think, hey, I can make a few dollars selling travel part-time or full-time. I got a couple that do both, and it's been working out really good for both of us.
Okay, sweet, sweet. What do those commission splits look like, and what's the benefit of them being an IC or going and getting their own CLIA number and doing it themselves? Obviously, there's training involved.
Right. Well, with me, I pay 80/20 to my agents. I got an agent now who's getting up there in salary, so I'm thinking about bumping her up a couple percent. Then I also have an agent who doesn't want to be have her own agency. So the reason why she doesn't is because she doesn't want to have all the things behind her that she'd have to get. She doesn't want to get a CLIA certificate. She doesn't want to have to train anybody. She just wants to strictly do sales.
Okay.
So that's the kind of people that I've got working for me. Well, not working for me, but with me.
Gotcha. Now, so let's shift gears. So you had a couple that was thinking about a destination wedding. How'd that go about? Did they come to you thinking destination wedding, or were they talking honeymoon and then it shifted to maybe we should think about doing a destination wedding?
That's exactly right. What happened? They came to me with the idea of a honeymoon, and once they started, I guess, gathering figures from venues and churches and stuff, she decided, hey, I think it's going to be cheaper if we had a destination wedding and just invite 20 or so of our friends and family, and we'll have a good time. So that's what they did. We had about 22 rooms, so it's about 44, 45 people.
Okay. And typically under that scenario, I assume the guests are paying their own way to get there and stay there, and then just the bride and the groom are taking care of themselves. How's that work in this case?
Yes, that's how that one worked. They paid for themselves, all the family and friends. But I have done destination weddings before where the bride and groom paid for everybody.
Wow.
It wasn't that big though. It was like 10 people, but they still paid for everybody.
Okay, probably still cheaper to do that, even with 10 people, than to do a wedding at home. What does a typical wedding in your area cost these days?
Geez. Well, when my son got married, probably about 10 years ago, I think it was about $12,000, and that was just for the reception and the church. That didn't count food and all that.
Oh, so
that was just the hall.
Gotcha. And then on top of that, you're paying to have the catering and whatever else you're having. Gotcha. Yeah, I think you're in that $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 range these days is what and I've got a daughter, so we'll see how that goes.
It's coming, buddy.
We'll see. We'll see. All right. So how did they choose Cancun?
Well, we came up with what would be the easiest for people to get to. They were coming from all over the U.S. So the choices were Jamaica, Punta Cana, or Cancun. Well, since she had people coming from California, we decided on Cancun.
So geography plays an important role. I remember I helped one of my employees when he got married. We did it down in Mexico,
Mhm.
and we ended up doing Los Cabos because he's originally from Asia, and a lot of people are coming from Asia.
Mhm.
That's how we chose that side of Mexico, and so
Mhm.
it makes sense versus the Caribbean.
Right.
Interesting. So,
Yep.
what were their objections, if they had any? Did they have any objections, or were they on board from the get-go in terms
They,
of
I
recommendations?
was, I was really surprised. They went with all my recommendations, everything. When I said, we're going to go with a different transfer company than what the supplier deals with, and we booked it through a third party, and they loved it. We didn't have any hiccups at all. That's one of the reasons why I escorted it, because I wanted to make sure there was no hiccups in it.
Gotcha. And so why'd you use a third party as opposed to the suppliers?
The supplier's transfer company wasn't 5-star, and that's what I like about the suppliers I deal with. I know what they're good at and what they're bad at, so I can cut and paste and figure out insurances and stuff like that.
So interesting. So it wasn't as high end as you wanted for that. Because and was it about the same price point, but much better value?
It was a little pricier. It was instead of being $33 a person, that was on a shared transfer. It was like 38.
Oh,
so it was just a couple bucks more.
But a much better experience.
Exactly.
And how do you showcase that to these folks so they understand that, look, I'm doing work for you that's giving you a much better value. For an extra $5, you're getting a much better experience just as soon as you arrive. Because what people don't realize is the process of getting there, and then when you come home, can literally ruin a vacation. And that includes going to the front desk and checking in, right?
Exactly.
Because we know in Mexico, there are times when you get there, and I've been a victim of this, you could sit in that lobby for 2-3 hours.
Yes, unfortunately.
Right. And it seems there's a lot of disorganization to, property to property. How do you deal with that and make sure that doesn't happen with a group like this? Because that can really send things off the rails really quickly.
Yes, definitely. What I do is I just send them pictures of what their experience is going to be like. Like I have the guy holding up from Lomas Travel, holding up the sign with the clients' names on it, so they know where to go instead of looking around for a guy in a blue shirt and white pants.
Yeah,
it's easier to find them. So I send them those pictures, and then I send them what a picture looks like if they went with the supplier's transfer company, and it's a guy sitting on a bar stool.
Gotcha. Oh, okay, that's pretty convincing. I like that.
Yeah.
That's a great, visual, because you're like, hey, here's your personal chauffeur, if you would. Versus,
right.
Good luck finding the guy. Hopefully, he's not been drinking too much tequila, right?
Exactly.
I'm just kidding. For all my Mexican friends and all the Mexico suppliers, just a joke. So when you get to the hotel, tell us about the hotel that they selected, and what was the defining value or proposition that made them choose that particular property?
Well, I sent them a couple estimates, and they chose a property that I didn't think they were going to pick. They chose Sandoz Caracol, and I really liked it because when we got there, I didn't know this until we got there. I had emailed the manager and said, hey, we got a group of people coming, yada, yada. And they put me in or put us in like a group suite to check us in. We didn't have to stand in line. We didn't have to hear the spiels about, I wanted to make sure there's no timeshares.
Yeah. Yeah. So interesting. So you emailed the GM ahead of time. And is this a hotel you've ever booked before, or is this the first time?
Oh, no. My wife and I have been there a couple times.
Okay.
So we kind of like it.
And he knew you, and and he's familiar with you. So
yes.
What was his response, or her? Was it a man or woman?
It was a guy.
All right. So
yeah.
I don't want to be accused of being a misogynist. That.
Not with me on.
Absolutely not.
Right.
Not. I love women.
Right.
General managers.
He was just very happy to see me when we got there. It was like as soon as I got out of the shuttle bus, he was standing right there, and I couldn't believe it.
That's
it's not like we called ahead.
Yeah, but they had your flight info, right?
Oh,
so yes, they did have your flight info, and that's what people don't understand in the hospitality industry. If you're not in this industry, you don't understand, like, how is that guy who I just met on check-in? Hello, Mr. Murphy. Can I get you a taxi? You're just like, how does he know that? And they've got really creative ways, especially in higher end properties in the hospitality industry, to know who you are and greet you, right? So they greeted you, they brought you inside. Did they take you straight away to the group check-in? You know,
Yes, and they had people there with drinks and hors d'oeuvres. It was, I couldn't ask for anything better.
And none of this was prearranged. He did that on his own.
Correct.
And what's the general manager's name off the top of your head? Remember
it is Jose. I know I'm going to mess up the last name. It's I couldn't pronounce it.
All right, don't worry about it. So Jose, the general manager at Sandos there, and so
Alvarez.
Jose Alvarez. Okay, very good. Shout out to Jose Alvarez for great customer service.
Yeah, very.
Would you, in the future, reach out in advance to try to replicate that, just in case other places that you bring groups to aren't as savvy about, you know, making sure they give you that great greeting?
Yes, I do. I started doing that with the destination weddings that I have in the books right now. I have like 3 or 4 that I'm working on. So once they pick their hotels, I'm going to send a letter to the hotel manager and the sales manager and let them know that we're coming. And this is what I've experienced before. Can we do this again? Gotcha.
And do you try to limit it to a certain select number of hotels? You said you recommended 3 properties to these folks. And the Sandos was kind of in the mid-market type of hotel.
I do. What I do is I'll download fact sheets from the hotel's website, and I'll send them the quotes so that they can make a decision. We did a Zoom call with me, their family, well, their mothers and fathers, and the bride and groom, and we just went through the questions, and they said that Sandos checked all the boxes.
There you go. And so you had multiple decision makers. What have you found is the best way to manage that? Because sometimes you've got, you know, Bridezilla, sometimes you've got the crazy mother-in-law, sometimes the crazy dad, the crazy mom, all of the above.
Yes.
All right, let me digress. What's the craziest thing that you've seen or experienced trying to book somebody, not just for a destination wedding, but have you had those internal fights that you've had to kind of be like, whoa, hold on a second?
Yep. We had a bride who was getting married in Jamaica at the Secrets Resort there at St. James. And the mother insisted on booking her room herself. Insisted. And her room was the tipping point into getting more perks. So I finally talked her into letting me take over the booking so that they could get the free cocktail hour and all that stuff.
So what was her motivation for wanting to book it herself? She just like a control freak?
Yeah, I think she's anti-travel agent. To this day, she doesn't talk to me. I send her emails and, you know, marketing stuff, and I guess goes in the trash can, but her daughter still talks to me.
That's cool. And then what do you find after you do something like these destination weddings? What happens after that? Do you find that they stick around and you tend to market to all the guests going forward, more just the bride and groom and the close family? Has that turned into incremental business down the road?
Yes, it has. I'd probably say about 75% of the people that go with them stay on board because they get on my email list. And then the bride and groom, I think I have probably 90% of them still book with me.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And what would you tell somebody that's new in the business if they wanted to start doing destination weddings? You know, is there an organization? Is there certain training or, you know, or certain types of marketing that will get you in front of potential brides to be? Because you know what, they're a moving target. You know, they get engaged and then boom, you know, ideally within 12 months, they're getting married. So if you don't get the timing right, same with honeymoons. So, you know, did you advertise somewhere? Is this family friends, referrals?
I actually just boost a Facebook post. And I do it across the nation, and I get people from Florida. I get people from Colorado.
And what do you typically invest on those booths? Is it a few dollars?
But like if it's a weekend that I'm slow at, I'll put like $20 in, and I'll get a couple hits, and maybe one of them will pan out.
And so when you do that, and you say you do it across the country, what parameters are you choosing? Are you trying to get people that may possibly be getting married, and therefore you can target them? And you target female versus male? You know, there's so many ways you can target on Facebook.
Right. what I go after is somebody between 24 and 40, age-wise, female, that was recently engaged.
And you can see that they were recently engaged because they tell you that
Mm-hmm.
you know, in their profile, like,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
It's amazing what we give up in terms of information about ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Allows the targeting of advertising, like
Mm-hmm.
you just said. And
Yes.
you can actually target people by what they've purchased,
Mm-hmm.
trips that they've taken,
Mm-hmm.
all sorts of things, right?
Yep.
So what would you say to the independent contractor that's thinking about going out on their own? They've got business and maybe they're not having a great experience, because there's a lot of these companies today that sell the dream of traveling the world and being rich, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're, you know, we know that there are really commission clubs.
Right.
And a lot of those people, because people will talk, we have 40,000 ICs. And I go, no, you got 40,000 consumers and
Mm-hmm.
probably 200 real travel agents.
Right.
Because their average volume is like $3,000-$4,000 per agent.
Yes.
So if you just do the math,
Mm-hmm.
they're probably just booking their own vacation and they're paying $50 a month to do it.
Exactly.
So what would you tell those people that may get down on the business
Mm-hmm.
because of that?
And I just wanted to go back to when I started doing my host agency thing. I don't charge any fees, so that kind of gets people out of their mind that, hey, he's in this just to get the money for me, type of thing. All right, now back to your question. I would tell them, study as much as you can. It's more about being prepared than it is being a salesperson. You got to know the resorts. So live on the internet, live on, if you do 3 quotes, know a little bit about each resort that you send. So you're not saying, hey, I don't know what time check-in is. So just learn as much as you can about what you're selling.
So if I summed it up, you would say, learn as much as you can. When you do make a booking, make sure you've got that contact information for the key players at whatever resort, whatever transfer company it might be. I love the idea of the visuals, a picture of the guy sitting on the stool,
Mm-hmm.
by holding your personalized sign, because that makes, I hate to say it, but